Muy buenos dias. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Sun Upon 7. I hope that you have been enjoying today's show. We want to thank you for staying a little longer with us in our usual time. And of course, if you're going to stay longer, we have to give you more exciting stuff to discuss and know what's happening in the Belizean scene. And today we're talking about an amazing new podcast that talks about a collaboration between Belize and Guatemala. And of course, it's young people coming up with this concept. The name of the podcast is La Zona or The Zone. So today we're going to be finding out what was the brainchild behind La Zona. You know, what can you expect from these two amazing hosts, and how can you get involved? So let me introduce our guest, Pablo Cambranes, project manager. How are you feeling today, Pablo?
Good
It's
morning.
Wednesday.
Good morning. I'm a bit nervous, but happy to be here to bring light to this amazing project that is being done with the creation and the collaboration of two countries coming together to create something that is informative, useful for the youth.
For sure. I mean, and you're nervous. I hope that it's also excitement because, as you rightly mentioned, we're going to be talking about something that's new in the zone, something where people can get involved and learn something from. Right. So let me introduce our host of this podcast. We have Gisela Gonsalez. How are you doing, Gisela?
Doing pretty good. Thank you so much for asking. And once more, thank you for having us today here.
Thank you. You look so youthful yourself. You know, the hair and everything. So it's a pleasure to have you here with us. And also Benjamin Garcia. You know, you're the famous influencer. I'm sure you're no new face to like TikTok and a lot of these social media platforms. But it's good to see your involvement.
Thank you. It feels good to be at another media host. You know, I do media work as well, and I've been all over the country, but I haven't really set foot here on Channel 7. So it's my first time
getting popped today. So we thank you for that. So welcome to the three of you. Let's get started to learn more about the Zona.
As he was saying, it's great to see, the brainchild and understand why was there a need to develop a podcast, La Zona, The Zone. What was the thought process behind that? I guess, Pablo, I can ask you that. What was the need?
Sure. So this project basically started in 2019, where 24 episodes were created. Of course, based on the reception of those 24 episodes, the community was, surveyed and asked questions about what topics they prefer the most. And then based on that feedback and the platforms that they use, primarily being YouTube to listen to podcasts, we are now on the second phase of this project, which is to create an additional 24 episodes, which are 12 in Spanish and 12 in English, in order to cater to both countries, Belize and Guatemala. So that is basically the purpose. This second phase, actually, now we wanted to offer free trainings to the community on journalism, on how to breathe, on how to read scripts, on how to do all of things related to podcasting. So that was basically on the month of June that we did these free workshops. And then based on the interest of the people, which were a lot, we received over 45 community members that wanted to learn these new abilities, right? Which is good to see that there is interest to be a host, to talk about different topics. So we carried out these free workshops, and then from there, we went on to creating, and we put out flyers about a casting, which then Benjamin and Gisela participated in, and we also received a wide amount of youth that wanted to be part of the podcast. And of course, based on their abilities in front of the screen, we selected 4 from Belize and 4 from Guatemala.
Perfect.
So in each episode, we have one of each country. So they both shared since it's one topic per episode, then we have 2 perspectives on the same topic, but from different countries.
Okay.
I really like that.
And before we get to know our host better and of course how they feel about the podcast, what are some of the topics that this podcast addresses, Pablo?
So like I mentioned, there was a survey made, and then we received interest in culture, in tourism, in sustainability, so of course we expanded on those main topics of interest, and we now created for example, the first episode of the second season is why mental health should be a human right. So that is basically stemming from the interest of health. We then decided to create an episode focusing on mental health. So
beautiful.
I must invite everyone to tune in. It's available on YouTube or if you want to see the visual
Okay.
episode, but it's also available on Apple Podcasts, on all podcasting platforms, basically.
Perfect, perfect. And thank you for sharing that, because I was thinking, we're going to be talking about the Guatemala and Belize territorial dispute. So it's good to hear that we're branching off from there. And of course, how can we get the collaboration going? Because I'm sure there's so much things in common between Belize and Guatemala that we can learn from and highlight. So it's time for us to get to know the host better.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So, Gisela, I want to ask, what's the experience been like thus far being a host, getting to have your thoughts out there and have people share, their sentiments with you about, I think the same way, or, I didn't even think about it like that. Because that's the fun part about being a host, you get to put yourself out there for people to see you in your vulnerability, in your knowledge, and everything that you even don't know. And how has that experience been?
Most definitely. It's definitely wonderful because, as you said, we share our thoughts. So it's like my point of view might not be the same as many persons, but I can also share my point of view with other persons. So it's really good because besides the fact that you are learning, because there's many things I didn't know, because besides the fact that I did study in Belize, I didn't know many things. And I ignore the fact that I didn't know much of Belize as I thought.
Wow.
Because I've been learning a lot about the culture. And but the way of living in Belize, because myself, I studied in Benque. Therefore, in Benque, we still have a lot of traditions, or many things that are quite alike from Melchor. But when you go more into Belize City, Stan Creek, Toledo, and everything is more different.
Yeah.
So it's definitely wonderful to be sharing my experience and my peers' experience from Belize.
And what do you think has been the biggest challenge in taking this on and being a host and just diving into these topics?
Well, I mean, first of all, maybe the schedule. It's definitely the schedule because I'm a student myself. Therefore, I need to accommodate studies and then exams and then having time for the podcast. But good thing everything worked out perfectly.
So time management was really important. I
Yes.
can imagine.
Yeah.
And so,
Ben, I want to ask you, how is your feel about as being a host? Also, what are some of the topics that you feel are important for people to tune in and get involved? And
Yeah.
how can they get involved as well?
Initially, before I got into social media influencing, I worked at resorts. So I had been in tourism my entire life. So for me, going into this social media world and diving into podcasting and social media in general, opened a new door to raise awareness about the things that I personally have a lot of interest in. One of them being tourism. So when Pablo called the castings and I casted for it, that's one of the main things that I put on there.
Right.
I want tourism to be one of the main topics, and we did make tourism one of the main topics. As you know, Belize and Guatemala has very close relationships with tourism. Tikal being on that side, Shunantonich, Cajalpech, Caracol, all these waterfalls on this side. We have people going that way and coming this way,
Right.
crossing the adjacency zone to visit these places. And sometimes we need to learn how we can best, cooperate with each other to make this work. The pandemic did not help any at all. So tourism was literally shut down for such a long time. Many people lost their jobs. Others had to reincorporate themselves in different industries. I, luckily was able to get support from the resorts that I was working at to still stay there, under a different capacity and then eventually join this social media world. But I think it was important to speak up about it. We also have other sustainability topics, how we can take care of all these sites with the community being involved. So many sites like Shunantonich, for example, majority of the people that go there, the people that take care of that site, they're from Sokots. So there's nothing better than taking care of your own community, because if I am from Sokots and then there's someone doing something that they're not supposed to, then guess what? I'm definitely going to correct them. So there's higher chances of, me correcting that person as opposed to me not being from there, maybe not being as patriotic, and then I wouldn't, really care for what's really happening there. So like Gisela said, sometimes we don't share the same point of view, but I believe that dialogue is very important. And like in any relationship, even in love life, you talk to your partner, and that is how you get the ball rolling and get to understand each other. So that is the goal of the podcast, create that dialogue between youths from Guatemala and Belize to understand each other best And like Pablo said, the beauty about it is that because it was for youths, many at times financial resources are not there. So they made it free for us. And honestly, kudos to the OAS for that because it was a huge factor in having all these youths being able to make it there. So time management for me has also been an issue because I'm all over the country traveling and working. But when it came to the OAS, I always, tried my best to be there because beyond, any kind of monetary compensation, beyond any kind of expenses, it was more for the experience and what the positive impact is for our country, both Belize and Guatemala.
All right. Thank you for that, Ben.
Yeah.
Pablo, I want to ask you, what's the energy like of the podcast? What could people expect when they dive in? Are they going to be, I don't know, like very serious? I mean, it's a youthful thing. What's the energy like? And for persons that are interested in tuning in, what kind of mindset should they go into this podcast and what should they be looking at?
Sure. So, I mean, I wish the audience could see the behind the scenes of the actual recording.
Go behind the scenes then.
We should do that. Yeah.
Do one. So behind the scenes is quite very informal. We laugh a lot. I think we spend half of the time laughing and then the rest of the time recording.
All right.
But I think it's a wonderful experience for when it's time to record.
Yeah. So it's fun. I mean, it sounds like the laugh helps.
Yes, and actually like the dialogue between it, we're trying to keep the topics easy to understand.
Okay.
We always, when in the case that we might talk about certain tough or hard to understand concepts, then we make sure to break down what it means. We always start each segment with definitions, trying for our audience to understand what we're talking about so that it's easier for anyone to tune in. So it's nothing, I mean, podcasting should be fun, you can listen to it when you're driving to work, when you're doing chores around the house.
Right.
So we don't want it to be so formal and so we try to keep it fun and of course informing you on important issues such as like Benjamin mentioned, sustainability, agriculture, gender-based violence, mental health. So of course I must thank the Spanish Adjacency for International Cooperation, which is our main sponsor for this project. I mean, they saw the need that dialogue has an important role in the community. So it's thanks to them that this project is being carried out. And of course, like you mentioned, on screen, we're seeing the two platforms that we can
access the
listen or view the podcast.
Okay.
I think many people might not know that they have free access to podcasting episodes and shows on their phone. I mean, you can listen to thousands and thousands of free knowledge on your phone. So we just want to be an additional one or an additional option for the Belizeans and Guatemalans to listen to.
Perfect. So you can find these podcasts.
I mean, if you ask me, I think it should be the main one because we're discussing it. So I would definitely invite everyone to go and listen to it. As Pablo mentioned, as hosts, the experience between us, getting to know new people as well is a wonderful thing. You network and you meet new people and you find out about people's philosophy on things and their mindset and point of views. It's very, very fun. So it's definitely been a very nice experience. Honestly, for everyone that's listening and all the youths that are probably going to be watching this show, I invite you guys to definitely take part. If you're close to the border of, the adjacency zone, to go and cast if there's any more episodes, which I'm pretty sure there might be. But look out for it and be part of it. It's a very fun project, one where you can learn a lot, as well as network a lot.
Definitely.
And
you're learning new perspectives. That's one of the big things about it.
Yeah.
And that is where conversations start, where we get informed, where we might not agree, but we find a common ground and I can agree to disagree. And I can just learn something from you in that way because it's a learning process. That's the thing about life. There's always something to learn that, hey, I never know that. And, that's a good way of thinking about it. I'm going to put that in my pocket for next time around because I think this way, but I can see why you would think that way because of where you're from, your experiences, your culture, and so on. And it brings us together because we're one people. I mean, we're all humans. And that's one of the big things I hope people remember and put a mindset in that. Let's listen to this as a human being just trying to understand.
Right.
And the podcast is also bilingual. So persons can go both Spanish or English conversation, so you can tune in. And as Aurelia mentioned, we're neighbors, right? So there's many things that can harmonize us. So this is definitely a good initiative where we can harmonize our relationship, learn from each other, and have like those must-have conversations.
Right. And guess what's the beauty about it as well? There's also been some very nice programs being given for free for you to learn, how to speak on the radio, post-production as well, which is something that a lot of youths would definitely be interested in learning. If you're into social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, so many people have the energy to be on there. Like they want to make it big. They want to get so many followers, 30,000 followers, 40,000 followers. But then sometimes we lack the skills to edit all these videos, the pictures and so forth. The OAS, has been facilitating programs, bringing trained professionals, even all the way from Mexico, right, Pablo?
And they're mainly international instructors that
right. So
come and teach.
So there's many opportunities.
So there's
for
so
young
many
people,
opportunities.
not just through the podcast, but also through the OAS and actually the relationship.
Definitely should be a next conversation
all right.
to be able to have. So
So I already broke the shell. So you're invited to join us on our couch another time. So we would love to continue with the conversation. So it's time for us to wrap up our show.
Absolutely.
So as we do that, do you have any last words for our viewers?
Sure. Well, once again, just inviting them to perhaps follow us on Twitter. That's where we announce each and every episode.
Okay.
The username is at OEA_Belize Guate, as we're seeing on screen. And as well on YouTube, which, like I mentioned, that's where the episodes are also available. And the username is OEA Belize Guatemala. So you can find all 12 episodes there, which we have premiered so far. We have 12 more coming up. So we hope you enjoy each and every one of them.
All right. We'll definitely tune in. Yes. Ren,
so with that, guys, I'm just going to say have an amazing, tremendous Wednesday. And we're at the hump day of our entire week, but let's keep the energy going. Let's, tune into podcasts. Let's learn about our brains. Let's try our best to just understand what's happening in our country and share those perspectives, because that's how we move forward and grow as a people. So you guys take care. And
bye,
we'll see you
folks.
back here tomorrow.
All the best today. Happy hump day.